The air in the opulent hotel suite hung heavy with the scent of expensive liquor and unspoken regrets. Cheng Xinian stirred, her head throbbing with a dull ache that seemed to resonate deep within her bones. The unfamiliar surroundings slowly coalesced from a hazy blur into sharp, unsettling reality. Silk sheets, a king-sized bed, and the undeniable presence of another body beside her. Her eyes snapped open, a cold dread seizing her heart. She was not in her own bed. Panic, sharp and visceral, clawed at her throat. A cold sweat broke out on her skin despite the cool, conditioned air. Last night's events flickered like distorted shadows in her memory. The celebratory dinner for her hard-won scholarship, the toasts, the insistent urging from her classmates to drink just one more. She remembered laughter, a dizzying whirl of faces, and then nothing. An abrupt, terrifying void. Beside her, a man lay still, his broad shoulders rising and falling with a steady, even rhythm. The sliver of morning light that pierced through the heavy curtains illuminated the sharp, aristocratic lines of his jaw, the dark, tousled hair that fell across his forehead. He exuded an aura of quiet power, even in sleep. A sense of profound unease settled over Xinian. This was not merely a stranger. This was someone whose presence commanded an almost intimidating respect. She slipped from the bed, her movements precise and hushed, as if any sudden sound might shatter the fragile silence and summon a monster from the depths of her blurred consciousness. Her clothes lay discarded in a haphazard pile, a silent testament to the recklessness of the night. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons, her mind racing, searching for any fragment of memory, any explanation for this bewildering, terrifying situation. Then, his voice, low and laced with a surprising edge of frost, cut through the quiet. "How much did you drink last night?" Xinian froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. He was awake. She risked a glance over her shoulder. His eyes, the color of cold, dark pools, were now open, observing her with an unnerving intensity. There was no warmth in them, no hint of compassion or understanding, only a detached scrutiny that made her feel transparent, exposed. "Why did you fall asleep with someone you don't know?" The question was not asked with curiosity, but with an almost clinical detachment, as if he were cataloging a regrettable incident rather than reacting to a deeply personal violation. Xinian flinched. Shame, hot and consuming, washed over her. Her mind scrambled for an answer, an apology, a way to escape this suffocating predicament. But what could she say? The truth was as elusive as the memories of the preceding hours. All she knew was that she had made a colossal, unforgivable mistake. She managed to stammer, I'm so sorry. I don't remember anything." Her voice was barely a whisper, thick with embarrassment. He merely observed her, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. "My name is Bei Yuan," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "the CEO of Chenggi Group." The name hit Xinian like a physical blow. Bei Yuan, the undisputed titan of the business world, a man whose reputation preceded him, whose empire stretched across industries, and whose name was synonymous with power and wealth. She had heard of him, of course. Everyone in Kyoto had. He was a force of nature, aloof and formidable, rarely seen, and even more rarely approached. And she, Cheng Xinian, a simple scholarship student, had somehow stumbled into his bed. The irony was a bitter taste in her mouth. The realization brought with it a fresh wave of despair. This wasn't just any stranger. This was a man whose influence could crush her dreams with a single word. Her scholarship, her future, everything she had worked so tirelessly for, felt suddenly fragile, perched precariously on the precipice of ruin. I truly apologize, Mr. Sai," she managed, her voice trembling. "I assure you this was a complete accident. I'll leave immediately." She grabbed her clothes, desperate to put distance between herself and this overwhelming presence. He watched her dress, his expression unchanged, as if observing a curious phenomenon rather than a distressed young woman. When she was finally clothed, albeit haphazardly, he spoke again. "There's no need for further discussion." His tone implied that the matter was closed, dismissed. "This incident will remain between us." A flicker of relief, so potent it almost buckled her knees, coursed through her. He wouldn't expose her. He wouldn't ruin her. But then another, colder fear set in. What exactly did this mean for her? And for him? She nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "Thank you, Mr. Sai." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her once more. "Wait." He sat up, and Shinian tensed, bracing herself for some demand, some consequence. Instead, he reached for something on the bedside table. It was a delicate silver bracelet, intricately carved with a small, stylized an. "Is this yours?" he asked, his voice neutral. Shinian stared at the bracelet. It wasn't hers. She didn't own anything so fine. "No, Mr. Sai, it's not mine." He paused, a shadow of something unreadable passing through his eyes. He tossed the bracelet back onto the table. "You may leave." With a final, hurried bow, Shinian fled the room, the luxurious carpet feeling strangely soft beneath her bare feet. She didn't look back. The hotel corridor was a blur as she found her way out, the morning light outside blinding after the dimly lit suite. She hailed the first taxi she saw, gave her address, and sank into the back seat, trembling. The scent of him, faint and masculine, still clung to her clothes, a phantom reminder of the night. She closed her eyes, trying to erase the image of his cold, penetrating gaze, the sound of his detached voice. The morning after had been a nightmare, a stark, chilling introduction to a world she never knew existed. Shinian arrived home, her small rented apartment a stark contrast to the opulence she had just left. She showered, scrubbed her skin raw, trying to wash away the lingering sensation of the night, the residue of a profound, unsettling encounter. But the memory, though fragmented, remained. And as the days turned into weeks, a new, far more profound truth began to dawn upon her. The night had changed everything, and the consequences, she realized with a growing, terrifying certainty, were only just beginning to unfold. The quiet, gentle life she had meticulously built was about to be irrevocably altered, all because of one night of accidental oblivion and a man whose presence felt like an unyielding force of destiny. Her scholarship, her dreams of a simple, dignified future, now felt like distant, unattainable luxuries. The weight of an unspoken secret had already begun to settle heavy upon her soul. The 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test stick shimmered under the harsh bathroom light, stark and undeniable. Cheng Shinian's hand, holding the test, trembled so violently that the plastic stick clattered against the porcelain sink. Pregnant. The single word echoed in her mind, a deafening thunderclap that shattered the fragile calm she had desperately tried to rebuild since that fateful night. Disbelief warred with a cold, terrifying certainty. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a consequence that would forever bind her to a past she wished to erase, to a man who didn't even remember her face. Yuan. The name alone was a brand, a mark of power, and an unbridgeable chasm between their worlds. She, a girl from humble beginnings, now carried the child of Kyoto's most formidable CEO, a man who, in his detached assessment, had deemed their encounter an unfortunate accident to be swept under the rug. Shame, hot and bitter, burned in her throat. How could she face anyone? Her scholarship, her dreams of a quiet, respectable life, all seemed to dissolve into ash. To stay would be to invite scrutiny, scandal, and perhaps the chilling indifference of Yuan himself. She imagined his cold eyes, devoid of recognition, his dismissive words about unnecessary discussions. He had made it clear she was nothing more than a fleeting, regrettable incident. Silence over shame, she whispered to herself, the words a desperate mantra. She would leave. She would disappear. She would protect this tiny, burgeoning life within her from the harsh glare of a world that would judge them both. The decision, born of desperation, quickly solidified into a plan. She packed her meager belongings with a frantic energy, each item a symbol of the life she was abandoning. No goodbyes, no explanations. The fewer people who knew, the safer her secret and her child would be. Her best friend, Chao Ruan, would be confused, perhaps hurt, but Xinian convinced herself it was for the best. Some burdens were meant to be carried alone. Her scholarship, once a beacon of hope, now served as her escape route. She had the means to study abroad, to create a new life in a distant land, far from the suffocating weight of Kyoto and the pervasive shadow of the Sai family, Europe. A new continent, a new language, a new identity, a chance to be anonymous, to raise her child in peace, away from the piercing gaze of Mr. Sai and the complex, dangerous world he inhabited. The flight was a blur of tears and quiet resolve. She clutched her stomach, a protective hand resting over the secret that was both her greatest fear and her most profound joy. Every turbulence, every unfamiliar voice amplified her solitude, yet strengthened her determination. She was a mother now, and a mother's first duty was protection. Life abroad was a stark contrast to the dramatic currents of her past. She immersed herself in her studies, channeling her anxieties into academic pursuits. The scholarship provided enough for her basic needs, but every extra penny was meticulously saved, hoarded for the future she was building for two. There were moments of profound loneliness, pangs of longing for the familiar, for a comforting voice, for someone to share the immense weight of her secret. But whenever doubt threatened to consume her, she would lay a hand on her growing belly, feeling the gentle flutter within, and resolve would return. This child was her anchor, her reason. Months turned into years. The baby arrived, a small bundle of fierce life and overwhelming love. She named him Xiao Cheng, a name that evoked strength and continuity, a subtle defiance against the broken threads of her past. He was the spitting image of his father, a constant, beautiful reminder of that one night. His eyes, dark and intelligent, held the same intense depth as Si Beiyuan's. His smile, even as an infant, possessed a charming, almost mischievous tilt that would later prove to be irresistibly endearing. Xinian poured all her love and energy into raising Xiao Cheng. She found odd jobs to supplement her scholarship, working late into the nights, sacrificing sleep for his well-being. She learned to navigate a foreign city, to budget every cent, to be both mother and father to her precious boy. It was a life of quiet sacrifice, but also one filled with a profound, unshakable love. She taught him to be kind, to be curious, and to find joy in the smallest things. She shielded him from the harsh realities of their situation, painting a picture of his absent father as a busy, important man who loved them from afar. The world of Kyoto, and specifically the imposing figure of Si Beiyuan, faded into a distant, almost dreamlike memory. She convinced herself she had escaped, built an impenetrable fortress around her heart and her son. She believed she had truly vanished, leaving no trace for the past to follow. Yet, sometimes, on quiet evenings, a fleeting thought would surface. What if he had remembered? What if he had searched? The thought would be quickly dismissed. He was Si Beiyuan, after all. A man of precision and control, not one to dwell on forgotten nights and misplaced bracelets. Her disappearance was a clean slate, a necessary act of self-preservation, or so she desperately hoped. She never knew that across continents, a man, haunted by a phantom memory, clung to a single silver bracelet, searching for the ghost of a night he could not quite recall, yet could never truly forget. Their paths had diverged, but destiny, a force far greater than their individual choices, was slowly, inexorably, drawing them back together. And soon, the quiet life Xinian had built would be irrevocably shaken by the echoes of a past she thought she had buried forever. 6 years later. "Mommy, are we really going to see Daddy today?" The innocent question, brimming with a child's boundless hope, fluttered through the quiet apartment like a fragile butterfly. Cheng Xinian, kneeling to tie the laces of her son Xiao Cheng's bright red sneakers, paused. A faint smile touched her lips, a delicate veil over the complex emotions churning within her. 6 years had passed since that night. 6 years since she had fled Kyoto, leaving behind a secret that had grown into the vibrant, curious little boy now tugging at her sleeve. "Of course, my love," she murmured, her voice soft, though a tremor of apprehension ran beneath her words. "But Daddy's very busy. We mustn't disturb him yet." She smoothed down the collar of Xiao Cheng's tiny shirt, a gesture both affectionate and protective. His eyes, so remarkably like Sibei Yuan's, dark, intelligent, and piercingly observant, held a childlike eagerness that twisted her heart. He had grown so much, a testament to her quiet resilience in a foreign land. Their return to China had been as understated as their departure. No fanfare, no grand reunion, just a mother and a son stepping off a plane, blending into the anonymous crowds of Kyoto. Her old life, the one tethered to the trauma of that hotel suite and the formidable presence of Mr. Tsai, felt like a distant dream, a nightmare she had successfully outrun. She had built a new existence, brick by painstaking brick, a haven for herself and Xiao Cheng, far from the shadows of her past. She had returned for work, accepting a promising offer from Chenggi Group, a company that, ironically, was Sibei Yuan's empire. The universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. Her small, cozy apartment, though modest, was a sanctuary. It hummed with the familiar sounds of domesticity, the gentle rustle of curtains in the breeze, the distant murmur of city life. "Anan, thank you for coming back early to help me clean up my small suite," she said, glancing at her lifelong friend, Chao Ruan, who was humming as she tidied up the kitchen. "We haven't lived in it for 6 years." Chao Ruan, ever the cheerful one, waved a dismissive hand. "Why are you so polite to me? I also want to thank you for letting me live in your house, which saved me a lot of rent." She winked, a playful glint in her eyes. "Besides, I haven't seen you for half a month. Why is Xiao Cheng so cute again?" Xinian smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile this time. Ruan was her constant, her anchor in a world that had once felt so precarious. Ruan knew nothing of the night 6 years ago, nothing of Xiao Cheng's true parentage. Xinian had woven a careful tapestry of half-truths, portraying Xiao Cheng's father as a kind but distant figure, a narrative that protected both her and her son from the complexities of her past. "Let's go," Ruan announced, picking up her bag. "I'll call a car. They're waiting and we'll walk home." As they stepped out, the city enveloped them. Kyoto was as grand and indifferent as ever, a stark reminder of the social chasm that separated Xinian's quiet world from the glittering heights occupied by men like Sibei Yuan. It had been years since she last saw him, a fleeting, terrifying encounter that she had tried desperately to erase from her memory. He had been so cold, so dismissive. He had asked, "How much did you drink last night?" And, "Why did you fall asleep with someone you don't know?" He had even given her his business card, offering a sum of money as compensation, or the chance to be my woman if she wanted status. A chillingly transactional offer for a moment that had irrevocably altered her life. Later that afternoon, a chance encounter brought the past rushing back with a force that stole her breath. While strolling through a bustling mall with Xiao Cheng, a familiar voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the din, Sibei Yuan. He was right there, in the same high-end shopping district where Xinian had once glimpsed him, a man whose presence seemed to command the very air around him. But this time, he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, her hand linked with his, a delicate silver bracelet glinting on her wrist. The very bracelet that Shinian had seen on his bedside table 6 years ago, the one she had denied owning. Shinian's world tilted. Her heart, which she thought had long healed, cracked open. The bracelet. It wasn't hers then, but it was the ghost of that night, a tangible link to a past she had tried to bury. And now it was on the wrist of another woman, a woman who, no doubt, was Si Beiwan's current love. Xiao Cheng, ever observant, tugged at her hand. "Mommy," he whispered, his soft voice piercing her daze. "Is that lady my new mommy too?" Shinian felt a jolt of pain, a sharp, suffocating agony she hadn't anticipated. She turned away quickly, pulling Xiao Cheng closer, shielding him from a truth too complex, too painful for his young mind. Even pain had a limit, she thought, and this felt like she was reaching hers. The quiet life she had built, the carefully constructed facade of independence, threatened to crumble under the weight of this unforeseen reality. The phantom of that night, the man she had tried so hard to forget, had reappeared, seemingly with his life perfectly in order, completely oblivious to the son he had and the mother he had left behind. Her Cinderella dream, if it ever was one, had morphed into a cruel, ironic twist. Unbeknownst to Shinian, the bracelet held a different significance for Si Beiwan. It was not a memento of a lover, but a solitary clue from a night he couldn't fully remember, yet one he obsessively tried to unravel. He had been looking for the owner of that bracelet for 6 years, a ghost of a woman he had never seen. Now, a woman was wearing it, presented to him by his secretary, and the connection seemed undeniable. "We have to find a way to find the owner of this bracelet," he had told his assistant years ago. He hadn't known then that the woman he sought had been closer than he ever imagined, right there in his own company, a secret Cinderella whose glass slipper was a simple silver band. Si Beiyuan was a man carved from ice and ambition. His world revolved around logic, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. Emotions were a distraction, a weakness he had long since purged from his meticulously ordered existence. He had one paramount rule in his life, particularly concerning his personal space and his corporate realm: no women. He was famously allergic to perfume, to casual touch, to the very presence of a female form in his immediate vicinity. It was a well-known quirk, a silent barrier that kept potential romantic entanglements at a safe, sterile distance. His assistants, his colleagues, even his family, understood this unspoken decree. Women were an inconvenience, an unpredictable variable in his carefully constructed, predictable universe. Yet, 6 years ago, a singular, baffling anomaly had shattered that ironclad rule. A night, hazy and indistinct, a series of fragmented sensations rather than clear memories. He remembered a touch, a warmth, a scent that had lingered long after she had vanished from his opulent hotel suite. He never saw her face clearly, the details obscured by a haze of alcohol and a sudden, inexplicable fever that had gripped him that morning. But he remembered the lingering aroma of wild jasmine and a delicate silver bracelet left behind on his bedside table. That bracelet, with the intricate carving of an Anne, a symbol, perhaps, of peace or tranquility, became his only tangible link to a woman he couldn't recall, yet couldn't forget. Every night since, the image of that bracelet and the lingering phantom of her presence haunted him. He had launched a silent, obsessive search. His most trusted assistants were tasked with the impossible, to locate a woman known only by a piece of jewelry and a fleeting sensation. "We have to find a way to find the owner of this bracelet," he had commanded, his voice as unyielding as ever, masking an uncharacteristic undercurrent of something akin to desperate curiosity. The world knew him as Si Beiwan, the cold, untouchable CEO of Chingy Group, but in the quiet solitude of his nights, he was simply a man haunted by a beautiful enigma. His life flowed with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Meetings, international deals, expansions. His empire grew with relentless efficiency. He dated occasionally, but these relationships were shallow, transactional. He offered compensation, status, a comfortable life, anything but genuine emotional investment. If you want status, you can also move to a famous villa and be my woman, he had told one woman, his voice devoid of true feeling. It was a simple exchange, companionship for material security, a convenient arrangement that demanded nothing of his carefully guarded heart. He maintained a detached formality even with those closest to him, a shield against any vulnerability. Then, 6 years after that pivotal night, a spark of hope ignited. His assistant, loyal and efficient, delivered unexpected news. Mr. C, you have been looking for that woman 6 years ago. Now I just got the news that she has returned to China. A wave of something akin to excitement, a foreign, almost startling sensation washed over him. Was it really fate? The missing piece of his puzzle, the woman who had breached his impenetrable defenses, was finally within reach. However, fate, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. The very next day, a new applicant arrived for the position of design assistant at Chenggi Group, Cheng Xinian. Her presence was a disorienting echo of the past, a faint memory stirring at the edges of his consciousness. Why does this woman feel familiar? He mused, her face triggering a distant, unsettling recognition. Yet, he dismissed it. He was Si Beiyuan, the man who couldn't love, who was allergic to floral scents and spontaneous intimacy. This new employee, Cheng Xinian, was just that, a new employee. He even noted she was married and has children, which surely meant she couldn't be the woman he sought. He soon found himself inexplicably drawn to her. She possessed an quiet strength, a gentle determination that intrigued him. He found himself subtly testing her, observing her, a strange fascination taking root in his guarded heart. He even, against his own rules, offered her a high-paying job as his personal secretary, a role that brought her into his orbit, a position that, he told himself, was purely professional. No way, he thought, observing her. Who asked him to give too much? This is completely testing my determination. Her efficiency and quiet competence impressed him. The universe continued its intricate dance. When Xiao Cheng, her son, unexpectedly appeared at the office, a jolt of recognition, inexplicable and profound, coursed through Si Beiyuan. This kid's eyes seem to be somewhat similar to mine, he observed, a fleeting thought dismissed as impossible. Yet the boy's cheerful innocence and surprising resemblance tugged at something deep within him, something long dormant. He even, uncharacteristically, allowed Xinian to bring Xiao Cheng to the office when the boy was sick, creating a children's room in the office for them. He discovered that the bracelet, his only clue, was now worn by Chao Ruan, Xinian's best friend. His secretary had apparently located her, and it seemed his long search was over. Chao Ruan, charming and attentive, presented herself as the woman from that night, and Si Beiyuan, ever logical, accepted the apparent truth. He began to introduce her as his future wife, a practical arrangement built on a mistaken identity and a fragile, unexamined past. He even bought her an expensive necklace as a gift. "It's an honor to work for Madam," his assistant had said. He began to spend time with Chao Ruan, indulging her requests, taking her to fancy dinners, and even letting her visit him at his famous villa. Yet, a subtle unease persisted. Despite her efforts to fulfill the role of the woman he sought, something felt missing. The connection he craved remained elusive. His allergy to women, a deep-seated aversion to physical intimacy, a direct consequence of that blurred night, still lingered. Even with Chao Ruan, there was a detachment. He would coax her to sleep, but didn't know how to do it. He was cold even to her at times, offering money but not true intimacy. The phantom memory, the true essence of the woman from that night, still eluded him, a frustrating ghost in his meticulously ordered life. He was the CEO who couldn't truly love, driven by a logical pursuit of a missing piece he believed he had found. The truth, however, lay hidden in plain sight, a Cinderella working diligently by his side, unknowingly carrying the most precious part of his forgotten past. And the deception, woven by a desperate friend, would soon unravel, exposing the raw, aching reality of a love that was always there, waiting to be rediscovered. The scent of jasmine, light and fleeting, once a haunting phantom, now felt like a cruel mockery. Cheng Xinian clutched the small, trembling hand of her son, Xiao Cheng, her gaze fixed on the man she had come back to find, only to discover he was no longer alone. There, in the bustling luxury of the mall, stood Si Beiyuan, his formidable presence as imposing as she remembered, but this time softened by the proximity of a woman. And on that woman's wrist, glinting under the polished lights, was her bracelet. The silver band, intricately carved with the stylized Anne, the very one left behind on the hotel bedside table 6 years ago, the one she had denied owning, the one Si Beiyuan had been searching for. Her heart, which had endured years of quiet solitude and unspoken longing, fractured. The pain was sharp, immediate, a searing wound that tore through her carefully constructed composure. All the silent hopes she had harbored, the faint, secret dreams of a possible reunion, shattered into a million pieces. He had found someone. He had moved on. And the woman at his side, wearing her phantom memory, was her oldest, dearest friend, Qiao Ruan. "Mommy," Xiao Cheng's soft voice, full of innocent wonder, sliced through the fog of Xinian's despair. "Is that lady my new mommy too?" The question was a second, more profound stab. How could she explain this intricate web of deceit to her son, who had spent his young life dreaming of a busy daddy who would one day return? The cruel irony twisted her stomach. The man who was Xiao Cheng's father, the man who had inexplicably captured her heart all those years ago, now stood before her with an impostor, and her son, unknowingly, was drawn to the lie. She turned away sharply, pulling Xiao Cheng closer, desperate to shield him and herself from the brutal reality. Even pain had a limit, and this felt like hers. The following days were a blur of numb routine and suffocating grief. Xinian immersed herself in her new role at Chenggi Group, the very company that was both Si Beiyuan's empire and, now, Qiao Ruan's perceived domain. The irony was a bitter pill. She tried to maintain a facade of professionalism, but every glimpse of Si Beiyuan, every casual mention of his supposed relationship with Ruan, was a fresh wound. She learned quickly that Qiao Ruan had fully embraced her new role. She was frequently at the company, flitting around with an air of self-importance, reveling in the attention and the perceived status. Xinian overheard whispered conversations among colleagues. "I guess she is Mr. Tsai's future madam," one colleague commented. Ruan even took pride in the expensive necklace Si Beiyuan had bought for her, oblivious to the fact that Xinian herself had seen him pick it out. "He really picked it with good taste," Ruan would say, parading the jewelry as a testament to her newfound intimacy with Si Beiyuan. The deceit was maddening. Ruan, her childhood friend, her confidant, the person who had been a sister to her in the orphanage, had stolen her identity, her connection to the man who was the father of her child. Xinian had confided in Ruan for years about her secret life, her struggles abroad, her dreams for Xiao Cheng. How could Ruan betray her so profoundly? Yet, what could Xinian do? To reveal the truth would expose her own past, jeopardize her hard-won stability, and potentially shatter Xiao Cheng's innocent world. The idea of public scandal, especially involving someone of Si Beiyuan's stature, was terrifying. One afternoon, while working late, Xinian received a call from Si Beiyuan himself. He sounded different, a hint of something raw and exposed in his usually controlled voice. He demanded she come to his villa immediately to revise a plan. It seems that I had a quarrel with my girlfriend, she mused to herself on the way, sensing the tension in his voice. The villa was indeed grand, a monument to wealth and power. Your boss's house is quite big. Her ride, Lu Yunshen commented. When she arrived, Chao Ruan was there, dramatically ill, draped on a sofa, demanding Si Beiwan's attention. It hurts, but I don't want to go to the hospital and insist on seeing you, Ruan wailed. Xinian watched, a bitter taste in her mouth, as her friend feigned helplessness, manipulating Si Beiyuan with an almost desperate plea for affection. Later, when Si Beiyuan offered Ruan money to hire a caregiver, Chao Ruan, clinging to him, demanded, "Do you hate me so much that you don't even want to touch me?" She even tried to remind him of that night 6 years ago, hinting at intimacy. "Still so cold," Ruan complained. "Have you forgotten what you did to me at the Helen Hotel 6 years ago?" The brazenness of Ruan's lies was shocking. Si Beiwan, ever detached, simply offered her more money, still seeking the Anne he believed she was. "If you want money, I can give you more money than you can use in your lifetime," he stated, his voice flat, clearly seeing the situation as a financial transaction, not an emotional one. The scene unfolded like a twisted play, and Xinian was an unwilling audience member, forced to witness her friend's escalating deception and the CEO's oblivious entanglement. The next challenge came with the upcoming autumn new product launch. Xinian was tasked with writing the planning case, a huge responsibility. Ruan, sensing an opportunity, approached her with a false show of camaraderie. "Good luck to Cheng Xinian every time there is something important," she said, offering Xinian a glass of lemonade, a gesture that, unbeknownst to Xinian, was laced with venom. She would drink a glass of lemonade every time to relieve her tension, Ruan had told Manager Bai, planning her sinister act. On the day of the launch, as Xinian prepared to go on stage, a sudden, debilitating wave of nausea and stomach cramps hit her. Why is it that the diarrhea press conference is about to start at this time? She thought in agony. She realized with horror that the lemonade Ruan had given her was likely drugged. Panic set in. She was trapped in the bathroom, helpless, while the conference was about to begin. She heard her son, Xiao Cheng, worriedly calling for her. "Mommy! Mommy! Xiao Cheng! Please open the door for Mommy!" he pleaded, his voice small and desperate from outside. Just as Manager Bai, prompted by Ruan, was about to take the stage and claim credit for the presentation, Xinian, with a surge of desperate strength, stumbled out, her face pale but her resolve unbroken. She managed to deliver her speech, her voice strong despite her internal turmoil. The launch was a success, a testament to her talent and sheer willpower. Si Beiyuan, observing her, seemed almost impressed. "Mr. Zhang, you value me so much. It seems that I am going to get a promotion and a salary increase," she thought to herself, a flicker of pride amidst the pain. Afterward, at the celebratory dinner, Xinian, weary but determined, seized the opportunity to expose Ruan's betrayal, albeit subtly. She publicly thanked Manager Bai for the lemonade that had eased her resignation. Si Beiwan, a man of sharp intellect, immediately sensed the underlying malice. He interrogated Manager Bai, quickly extracting the truth about Ruan's sabotage. "She lied to me again," he thought, a cold fury building within him. His allergy to women, the carefully maintained distance, was his defense mechanism against deception. And now, he realized, he had been profoundly deceived. He fired Manager Bai, but not before subtly acknowledging the deception he had just witnessed. "You should know my temper," he stated. "I calculate my colleagues and affect the company's cooperation. Look at you. For the sake of 10 years, I will save face for you." I resigned and left the company. The air was thick with unspoken truths. The impostor had taken everything: her name, her child's place, even the memory of that night. But the foundation of lies was beginning to crack. And soon the truth would be unavoidable, a reckoning for those who had lived in its shadow. The silence, in Si Beiyuan's private office was thicker than usual, a suffocating blanket woven from shattered trust and simmering anger. Manager Bai, usually a picture of efficiency and composure, stood pale and trembling before him. The truth of Chao Ruan's deception finally laid bare. "She lied to me again." Si Beiyuan's voice was a low rumble, devoid of its usual frost, replaced by a dangerous edge of betrayal. He remembered the specific conversations, the subtle manipulations, the calculated innocence in Chao Ruan's eyes. He, the man who prided himself on his keen intellect and unshakable judgment, had been thoroughly, embarrassingly fooled. The revelation of the drugged lemonade at the product launch, confirmed by Manager Bai's reluctant confession and further verified by discreet inquiries, had ignited a cold fury within him. It wasn't just the betrayal of a potential partner. It was the audaciousness of the lie, the casual cruelty directed at an innocent employee, his employee. He had always valued integrity, and this blatant deception was an affront to his very core. He had already fired Manager Bai and issued an industry ban order for her complicity in the scheme, a swift and ruthless punishment for disloyalty within his ranks. But Chao Ruan's punishment would be far more severe. He dismissed Manager Bai with a curt nod, her fearful retreat leaving him alone with his thoughts. The cold, logical part of his mind began to sift through the fragments of the past 6 years. The bracelet. The one piece of tangible evidence from that blurred night. Chao Ruan had worn it, claiming it as a gift from Xinian, a symbol of their enduring friendship. "After I returned to China, I found the store and ordered an identical one. This is the best testimony of our friendship," Chao Ruan had said, seemingly innocent. But the truth was far more sinister. She had ordered an identical one because she didn't possess the original. She had simply claimed ownership, spinning a web of lies to ensnare him. He replayed his first encounter with Chao Ruan after Xinyan's return, the day he asked about the bracelet. "Isn't this the bracelet I gave to Xinyan?" she had said, and then, "It seems to be 6. What happened to the one from years ago?" Her performance had been convincing. She had even told him it had Anne engraved on it, further solidifying his mistaken belief. He remembered how he had told her, "This bracelet has been lost for a long time. Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person. My name is Si Beiyuan. I'm the CEO of Chengyi Group. Do you still remember the person you had a relationship with 6 years ago?" And she, audacious, had responded with a lie, allowing him to believe she was that woman. His own allergy to women, a physical manifestation of a deep-seated aversion caused by that very night, had made him vulnerable. He had been looking for a specific woman, a specific touch, a specific presence that would quell the inexplicable discomfort he felt around others. Chao Ruan, armed with a copied bracelet and a fabricated story, had stepped into that void, exploiting his desperate, unacknowledged search. He had told her, "If you want status, you can also move to a famous villa and be my woman." She had accepted, moving into his villa, believing she had secured her future by deception. The pieces clicked into place, cold and sharp. Chao Ruan had not only deceived him, she had actively sabotaged Xinian, her supposed best friend, in a ruthless bid to maintain her stolen position. The memory of Xinian's quiet strength, her unwavering integrity, stood in stark contrast to Ruan's calculating lies. And then there was Xiao Cheng, the little boy with eyes too familiar, with a spirit too bright, with a scent that, inexplicably, didn't trigger his aversion. He recalled Xiao Cheng's innocent questions. "Mommy, is that lady my new mommy too?" He remembered the way Xiao Cheng gravitated towards him, the way the boy had declared, "Daddy, I finally found you." He remembered the shared allergy to flowers, a seemingly small detail that now screamed of a profound connection. He remembered the striking resemblance, a truth he had initially dismissed as a trick of the mind. This kid's eyes seemed to be somewhat similar to mine, he had thought, a seed of doubt already planted long ago. The realization hit him with the force of a tidal wave. Xiao Cheng was his son. Cheng Xinian, the quiet, resilient woman who had returned to Kyoto, working under his very nose, was the woman he had been searching for. The one who had vanished, carrying his child in secret, because he, in his cold, arrogant detachment, had failed to recognize her, had offered her money and status instead of the truth of his own forgotten night. "Do you still remember the person you had a relationship with 6 years ago?" he had asked Chao Ruan, unknowingly asking about Xinian. "She's married and has children," he had been told about Xinian, reinforcing his own blind spots. The truth was a harsh, unforgiving light, illuminating every careless word, every dismissive gesture, every missed opportunity. He had been the cold and dominant CEO, too proud, too aloof to see the obvious. He had been worried about her seducing Mr. Sai. Ironically, she was already entwined with him in the most profound way. He had seen her as merely a newcomer with little ability, when she was the very woman who held the key to his past and his future. He felt a deep, crushing regret, a profound shame for the years of neglect, for the pain she must have endured. She had raised their son alone, building a new life from the wreckage of a single, forgotten night. She had returned to Kyoto, strong and independent, choosing silence over shame, protecting their child from a truth she thought would only bring them pain. Now, the impostor's deception was finally laid bare. The woman who haunted him, the true Anne of his forgotten night, was back. And she had returned with a son who carried his name, a son who had instinctively recognized him even when he himself was blind. The debt he owed her was immeasurable, a chasm of lost years and unspoken truths. He knew, with an absolute certainty that resonated deep within his soul, that he had to make it right. No matter the cost, no matter the shattered image of the detached CEO, he had found his family, and he would never let them go again. The weight of the truth settled upon Si Beiyuan's shoulders with the crushing force of a collapsing skyscraper. Xiao Cheng, his son. Cheng Xinian, the woman who had haunted his subconscious for 6 years, the true owner of the silver bracelet, the mother of his child. The revelation, pieced together from Manager Bai's panicked confessions and the undeniable echoes of familiarity, struck him with a profound, almost paralyzing regret. He, the meticulous, cold, unfeeling CEO, had been blind. Blinded by circumstance, by an incomplete memory, and by the calculated deceit of someone he had mistakenly put his trust in. He recalled the day Xinian had returned to the company, a quiet, unassuming figure. Why does this woman feel familiar? He had mused to himself then, a flicker of recognition he had stubbornly, foolishly dismissed. He had even thought, she's married and has children, using it as a shield against any deeper connection, not realizing those very facts were the key to his own lost past. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in his mouth. Every interaction with Xinian, every casual observation of her resilience, her quiet strength, her devoted love for Xiao Chengit all now painted a picture of a woman wronged, a mother who had sacrificed everything to protect their child from a world that had abandoned her. The image of Xiao Cheng, vibrant and full of life, his dark, intelligent eyes so uncannily like his own, filled him with a fierce, protective ache. This kid's eyes seemed to be somewhat similar to mine, he remembered thinking, a thought he had brushed aside. Xiao Cheng's innocent declaration of, "Daddy, I finally found you," echoed in his mind, a poignant indictment of his own prolonged ignorance. He had almost lost them, almost condemned them to a life of separation built on a foundation of lies. The gravity of it stole his breath. He found Cheng Xinian in her small, rented apartment, the stark contrast to his own opulent villa, a testament to her quiet struggles. The air was thick with the scent of ginger, a comforting aroma that pulled at something deep within him, reminding him of home, of family. Xiao Cheng was playing quietly, a picture of childlike innocence, oblivious to the storm brewing between his parents. Xinian looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and weary resignation as Si Beiyuan stepped into the room. She had recently resigned from Chengi Group, a desperate attempt to create distance between them, to escape the suffocating presence of Chao Ruan's deception. He had called her earlier, demanding to know why she had quit. "What did you say you resign?" he had pressed, unable to comprehend her sudden departure. He had not yet understood the full scope of Chao Ruan's betrayal, or the depth of Xinian's silent suffering. He had even offered to support her and Xiaocheng, a detached, almost transactional offer that now felt painfully inadequate. Her eyes, usually gentle, held a defensive glint, a silent challenge. 6 years of unspoken pain, of lonely struggle, of building a new life, piece by piece, had forged a formidable strength within her. She was no longer the naive student who had stumbled into his bed. Si Beiyuan stepped forward, his voice rough, stripped of its usual corporate polish. "Why did you leave?" he asked, the question laced with a complex mix of confusion, accusation, and a burgeoning desperation he couldn't quite contain. It wasn't just about her leaving his company, it was about her leaving his life, their life, 6 years ago. Xinian's gaze met his, unwavering, and the raw truth of her reply hung in the air, sharp as shattered glass. "Because you never asked me to stay." Silence. Profound, aching silence. It stretched between them, heavy with the weight of unsaid words, unhealed wounds, and undeniable regret. Every beat of his heart throbbed with the realization of his arrogance, his cold indifference, his blindness. He had given her his business card, offering a sum of money as compensation, or the chance to be my woman, but never an actual invitation to remain, to belong. He had unknowingly inflicted the deepest wound by his sheer lack of acknowledgement, his erasure of their shared moment. He had been offered a lifetime of happiness, but had failed to see its value. Pain etched itself onto his features, a foreign emotion twisting his usually impassive face. Regret, cold and sharp, pierced him to his core. He saw it all now. The desperate flight, the solitary raising of their son, her quiet return, and the cruel torment of witnessing another woman usurp her rightful place. Chao Ruan had even said, "I have been in Chengi for 10 years, so we are on the same front. I want to stabilize Beiyuan's heart." "You want Beiyuan to reuse you." The words had seemed innocent at the time, but now they were revealed as a calculated plan to secure her position. He knelt, not merely a symbolic gesture, but a physical surrender to the immense weight of his culpability. He knelt before Xiaocheng, whose bright eyes watched him with an innocent, unwavering trust that tore at his soul. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," he rasped, his voice thick with unshed tears. The words were for his son, for every missed birthday, every scraped knee, every moment of joy and sorrow that Xinian had faced alone. They were for the lost years, for the childhood he had unwittingly denied his son a father in. Then his gaze lifted to Xinian, pleading, vulnerable in a way she had never seen him before. "Let me make it right. Marry me, for real this time." The proposal was not a cold, transactional offer like the one he had once given. It was a raw, unfiltered plea, born of a shattering realization and a desperate yearning for redemption. The "for real this time" acknowledged the sham, the stolen identity, the fabricated relationship with Chao Ruan. It acknowledged the depth of her hurt and his profound mistake. It was an offer of true partnership, of a family finally made whole. Xinian stared at him, her mind reeling. The arrogance, the coldness, the casual dismissal that had driven her away 6 years ago. It was gone, replaced by a vulnerability that shook her to her core. For so long she had braced herself against his indifference, had hardened her heart to the possibility of anything more than a professional relationship. The unexpected encounter at the mall, seeing Chao Ruan with him, had reaffirmed her belief that he was lost to her forever. "Uncle has a girlfriend. Does that mean he can't be with Mommy?" Xiaocheng had asked, breaking her heart all over again. She remembered Lu Yunshen's constant, steadfast affection, his gentle persistence. He had even tried to tell her the truth about the impersonation earlier. "See, Beiwan has always been, the person I'm looking for is you," he had said. But she, consumed by her own pain, had dismissed it. "You kept rejecting me when I was abroad because you wanted to find Xiao Cheng's biological father," he had pointed out, adding, "But you've been back home for so long and there's been no news from him." He had encouraged her to face the truth, not run from it. It's useless to escape blindly. His belief in her, his unwavering loyalty, had been a balm to her wounded spirit. Yet the man kneeling before her now, flawed and repentant, was Xiao Cheng's father, the other half of her own shattered destiny. Could she truly forgive the years of silent suffering? The bitterness of seeing Chao Ruan, her childhood friend, basking in a lie she had built? The sting of being reduced to a newcomer with little ability while carrying the weight of his child? But beneath the layers of pain and pride, a love that had never truly died pulsed faintly. It was a wound that had never fully healed, a constant ache that had shaped her very being. Now, the man responsible for that wound was offering to mend it, not with superficial gestures, but with the raw vulnerability of his soul. She looked at Xiao Cheng, whose small hand instinctively reached for Sibei Wan's, a silent acceptance that transcended words. Her son deserved a complete family, a father who acknowledged him, a love that was whole and true. For his sake, and perhaps for the sake of the young woman who had once, accidentally, fallen for a man with eyes cold as winter, she knew she had to consider it. The future was uncertain, fraught with challenges, but perhaps, just perhaps, this broken promise could lead to a second chance at a love that was meant to be. The journey of forgiveness, however, would be long and arduous, a testament to the depth of the betrayal they had both endured. The grand ballroom of the Chengji Group's annual meeting glittered with an almost deceptive splendor. Chandeliers cast a golden glow over a sea of perfectly tailored suits and elegant gowns, a tableau of power and influence. Sibei Yuan stood on the stage, his presence as commanding as ever, but beneath his composed exterior, a storm of emotion raged. Tonight, the carefully constructed facade of 6 years would be shattered, and the truth, raw and unyielding, would finally be unveiled. He looked out at the expectant faces, his gaze briefly sweeping over Chao Ruan, who sat in a prominent seat, radiating an air of smug anticipation. She believed this night would solidify her position, publicly declare her as the CEO's wife, securing the life she had so meticulously stolen. Unbeknownst to her, the net was already cast, and her carefully woven web of lies was about to unravel. Shinin was also there, positioned subtly in the back, her heart a knot of apprehension and a fragile, terrifying hope. She held Xiao Cheng's hand tightly, the small boy sensing the momentous tension in the air. "Good evening, everyone." Sibei Wan's voice, amplified by the state-of-the-art sound system, resonated through the hall, commanding instant silence. "Before the annual meeting begins, I would like to introduce someone to you." A ripple of excited whispers spread through the crowd. This was it, the long-awaited reveal of the mysterious woman who had captured the elusive CEO's heart. Chao Ruan beamed, adjusting the expensive necklace at her throat, a gift from Sibei Yuan that now felt like a lead weight around Xinian's own heart. She prepared to stand, to bask in the triumph. "She is the president's wife," Sibei Yuan continued, his eyes dark and piercing, now fixed directly on Chao Ruan. A collective gasp swept through the room, followed by a flurry of hushed murmurs. He watched Chao Ruan's smug smile falter, then freeze, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. The silence stretched, pregnant with unspoken anticipation. Then, with a deliberate, slow movement, Sibei Yuan extended his hand, not towards Chao Ruan, but past her, towards the back of the room where Xinian stood. His voice, now laced with an unmistakable tenderness that sent a shiver down Xinian's spine, rang out, clear and resonant. "It's Cheng Xinian." The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. The ballroom erupted in a cacophony of gasps, exclamations, and bewildered whispers. All eyes swiveled from the stunned Chao Ruan to the pale, trembling Xinian. "How can it be, Secretary Cheng?" someone exclaimed. "I don't know who the real CEO's wife is," another muttered. Chao Ruan shot to her feet, her face contorted in a mask of shock and fury. "What did you say?" she shrieked, her voice shrill and desperate, shattering the last vestiges of her carefully cultivated image. She turned to Si Beiyuan, her eyes wild. "Is Mr. Si Cheng Xinian? I deliberately made you say this to seduce you," she accused, desperate to cling to the lie. "I have moved into the famous villa for several months. Everyone in the famous villa can testify to me that I am your wife." But her words rang hollow, laced with an undeniable desperation. Si Beiyuan's expression remained unchanged, a cold, unwavering gaze that stripped her bare. Then, Lu Yunshen, stepping forward from the crowd, his voice resonating with quiet conviction, delivered the final, crushing blow. "Why don't you tell everyone how you pretended to be Cheng Xinyan to deceive me?" he asked Chao Ruan directly. He turned to the stunned crowd. "She is with Cheng Xinyan." Si Beiyuan's friend, who grew up with her, was also a liar, who pretended to be Cheng Xinyan for money and fame when she was looking for Cheng Xinyan. He laid bare the story of Chao Ruan's impersonation, her calculating deceit, her manipulation of both Si Beiyuan's search and Xinyan's kindness. The impostor was exposed. Chao Ruan, caught in her own tangled web, collapsed into a sobbing, incoherent mess, her grand ambitions crumbling around her. Si Beiyuan, with a single, firm gesture, signaled for security. "Come and send me this crazy woman to the police station," he commanded, his voice cold and final. But the victory for Xinian felt hollow. The public exposure, while validating, could not erase the quiet pain of the past 6 years. The scars remained. The years of raising Xiaocheng alone, the fear, the struggle, the constant ache of a secret buried deep, these were not easily wiped away by a public declaration. She looked at Si Beiyuan, standing tall and powerful, yet no longer the cold, unreachable man she once knew. His eyes, now filled with a profound regret, met hers, silently pleading for understanding. Trust wasn't a contract, it wasn't a deal, something that could be neatly arranged and signed, like the business transactions that filled Si Beiyuan's world. It was a fragile, intricate tapestry woven thread by painstaking thread, and theirs had been shredded by lies and misunderstanding. Love wasn't a deal either. It was messy, unpredictable, vulnerable. It was a journey, not a destination. In the days and weeks that followed, Si Beiyuan embarked on a mission to truly win them back. It wasn't about grand gestures or extravagant gifts, though he certainly had the means. It was about the quiet, consistent acts of devotion that spoke louder than any words. He doubled the year-end bonuses for all employees, a celebration of finding his family and acknowledging the company's achievements, a subtle nod to the happiness that now filled his personal life. But his true efforts were directed at Xinian and Xiaocheng. He began by dedicating his time. His notoriously packed schedule shifted, making space for school pickups, bedtime stories, and quiet dinners in their small apartment. He studied Xiaocheng, learning his quirks, his favorite games, the unique way he pronounced certain words. He listened intently when Xiaocheng chattered about his day, something he had never done with anyone before. He was clumsy at first, unused to the rhythms of family life, but his sincerity shone through. It was the way he held their son. Not with the detached air of a powerful CEO, but with a surprising tenderness, a fierce protectiveness that had been dormant for too long. He would scoop Xiaocheng up effortlessly, the boy clinging to him, a natural bond forming between father and son. When Xiaocheng was tired, Si Beiyuan would carry him, never complaining, simply holding him close, his expression soft with a love he was only just beginning to articulate. "Uncle C is not tired," he had told Shinian on one such occasion. "I just love Uncle Sai. It's okay. I'll hug you. I like Xiao Cheng." Those words now carried a profound, undeniable truth. It was the way he memorized every recipe she loved. He had once been a man who ate what was put before him, indifferent to culinary pleasures. But now he would observe her, noting her preferences, her favorite dishes. He would send his chef to learn from her, or quietly ask her for instructions, a humble gesture from a man accustomed to commanding. One evening, he surprised her by recreating a complex European dish she had perfected during her years abroad, a quiet tribute to her past, a bridge to their present. The subtle appreciation he showed for her simple home-cooked meals, a stark contrast to Chao Ruan's attempts to impress him with catered food, spoke volumes. He had learned what truly mattered. And then there was the waiting. He would wait every night, long after his work was done, not in his grand villa, but in their small, cozy apartment. He wouldn't demand, wouldn't pressure. He would simply sit, sometimes reading, sometimes working quietly, but always present, always there, waiting. Waiting for her to acknowledge him, not just as her boss, not just as Xiao Cheng's father, but as the man who wanted to share her life, truly, fully. He knew he had asked her to marry him, a desperate plea for a second chance, but he understood now that a mere proposal was not enough. Trust had to be rebuilt, and love had to be nurtured, patiently, tenderly. She saw the subtle shifts in him, the thawing of the ice around his heart. The ruthless CEO was still there, but beneath the formidable exterior lay a man capable of profound love and regret. He was no longer trying to solve a problem with logic or money. He was trying to heal a family with presence, with patience, with a vulnerability that surprised her. He had learned that "it's okay if you don't leave, but things are too bad" was not a solution, but an escape. His decision to pursue her, not with demands but with quiet devotion, slowly chipped away at the walls she had built around her heart. He had shown her that he deeply regretted the years of pain and separation. "I'm sorry for you, mother and son, these years." One evening, after a particularly difficult day at work, she arrived home to find him in the kitchen, apron-clad, attempting to make her favorite ginger soup, the very one Xiao Cheng had once offered her. He looked awkward, but determined. Xiao Cheng was giggling nearby, a picture of pure contentment. As she watched him, the scent of ginger filling the air, a warmth spread through her, a comforting balm to the weary soul. She realized, with a profound sense of peace, that this was what she had longed for, this quiet, imperfect, yet undeniably real love. She walked towards him, a soft smile finally gracing her lips. He looked up, his eyes filled with a familiar yet hopeful query. And she finally whispered the word he had been waiting for, the word that signified not just a place, but a belonging, a future, a true beginning. Home. The soft glow of lanterns, strung delicately amidst the lush trees of the Tsai family's private garden, cast an ethereal shimmer over the late evening. Their warmth was a stark contrast to the biting coldness that had once defined Sibei Yuan's world and Xinian's lonely journey. Tonight, however, the air was thick with laughter, the murmur of happy conversations, and the gentle melody of a piano playing somewhere in the distance. It was a celebration, not just of a successful year for Chengi Group, but of a family finally, irrevocably, united. Cheng Xinian stood beside the man she once thought was unreachable, his hand a warm, reassuring presence around hers. Sibei Yuan. The name no longer evoked the cold, formidable CEO who had inadvertently shattered her young life and then, in his ignorance, caused her so much pain. It was the name of the man who now looked at her with a depth of emotion that still brought a tremor to her heart, a tenderness that had slowly, patiently, melted away years of ice. The transformation in him was profound, a testament to the power of truth and the quiet, persistent pull of a love denied but never extinguished. He had fulfilled his promise to make it right. The public exposure of Chao Ruan's deceit at the annual meeting had been swift and unforgiving. The humiliation had been absolute, stripping Chao Ruan of her false identity and casting her out from the privileged circles she had so desperately sought to infiltrate. The woman who had brazenly claimed the position of CEO's wife and even worn the precious bracelet from that fateful night was revealed as a fraud. The fallout was immense, not just for Chao Ruan's reputation, but for any chance she had ever held of reclaiming a place in Xinyan's life. The friendship forged in the crucible of an orphanage had fractured beyond repair, a casualty of greed and betrayal. Yet, as Sibei-Wan had promised Xinyan, the scars remained. The years of silent suffering, the burden of raising Shao Cheng alone in a foreign land, the constant vigilance required to protect her secret, these were not simply erased by a public apology or a lavish wedding. Trust wasn't a contract, a neat document signed and sealed. It was a delicate, intricate rebuilding process, a daily commitment that transcended grand declarations. Love wasn't a deal, a transactional exchange of status for companionship. It was a profound, messy, and infinitely patient dance. Sibei-Yuan understood this now with a clarity that had been absent for far too long. He had learned, through the harsh crucible of his own mistakes, that the true measure of a man was not in his power or wealth, but in his capacity for honesty, vulnerability, and unwavering devotion. He had once been allergic to perfume and touch, a physical manifestation of his emotional walls, a direct consequence of that blurred night. Now the walls had crumbled, replaced by a yearning for the very intimacy he had once recoiled from. His efforts to mend their broken past were quiet, persistent, and deeply personal. It was in the way he held their son, not with a detached sense of duty, but with a natural, overflowing love that radiated from him. He would scoop Shao Cheng up effortlessly, a common sight now, his large hands careful and gentle. He learned Shao Cheng's boundless energy, his insatiable curiosity, his infectious laughter. He listened intently as Shao Cheng recounted his day, absorbing every detail, often finding profound joy in the simplest of childish observations. The small instances of shared allergies, like their similar reactions to certain flowers, once a fleeting curiosity, now became a tender confirmation of their biological bond. It was the way he memorized every recipe she loved. He, the CEO who had once been indifferent to food, now paid meticulous attention to her culinary preferences. He would insist on buying groceries with her, a small domestic ritual that belied his powerful status. He discovered her love for ginger soup, a remedy for colds and a comfort in quiet moments. He would often attempt to prepare it himself, his efforts clumsy but endearing, filling their small apartment with the aroma of warmth and burgeoning affection. He had even learned to recreate her favorite dishes from her time abroad, a silent acknowledgement of her resilience and a bridge built between their disparate pasts. And it was the way he waited. Every night, after his grueling work schedule, he wouldn't immediately retreat to his vast, empty villa. Instead, he would return to their modest apartment, simply being present. Sometimes he would work silently in the living room. Sometimes he would read, but he was always there, his quiet presence, a steady anchor in her often chaotic days. He didn't demand. He didn't pressure her for an immediate answer to his proposal. He simply waited, patiently, for her heart to heal, for the emotional chasm between them to slowly close. He waited, with a quiet strength that was more potent than any grand declaration, just to hear her say one word. That word finally came. Home. It wasn't just about the physical space, about the apartment they shared. It was about the sanctuary he had painstakingly rebuilt around them, a haven of rediscovered love and genuine family. It was the acknowledgement that with him she was truly safe, truly seen, truly loved. It was the acceptance of a future forged not from accident, but from a deliberate choice to embrace the messy, beautiful reality of their unique story. This time, she stayed. She chose to stay, not out of obligation or desperation, but out of a profound and growing love. The Cinderella who had fled, pregnant and alone, had returned to claim her rightful place, not through a glass slipper, but through the enduring strength of her heart and the undeniable bond of her son. And this time, he didn't let her go. He held her close, a silent vow passing between them that transcended words. He had learned the agonizing lesson of what it meant to lose her, to be a stranger to his own child, to live in a world devoid of the genuine connection he craved. The powerful, once emotionally stunted CEO now cherished every moment, every touch, every shared laugh. He understood that wealth could buy comfort, but it could never purchase the profound joy of a true family, a love built on honesty and mutual respect. Because some love is worth getting lost for. Their journey had been fraught with missteps, hidden truths, and agonizing separation. They had been lost to each other for 6 long years, drifting apart through accident and deceit, but their hearts, bound by an unbreakable thread of destiny, had ultimately found their way back. And some hearts never stop remembering. Even when memories were clouded by circumstance, or deliberately obscured by lies, the deepest connections, the truest bonds, resided in a place beyond conscious recall. Si Beiyuan's heart had never stopped searching, guided by an inexplicable pull towards the woman whose touch had left an indelible mark. Xinian's heart had never stopped loving, enduring through hardship, always holding a quiet flame for the man who was her child's father. Their story was a testament to the enduring power of fate, forgiveness, and the timeless truth that real love, once found, is worth fighting for, worth cherishing forever.